Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dylan speaking from Talking Radio, and welcome to another webinar on ROC and RPAS. This one's entitled the General Knowledge Checklist. Before I continue, I just want to make sure that you guys are there and you can see and hear me. So if you can see the screen, please type screen on the chat box that's on the right hand side. So I'll give you an example. We're just sending out a message now from our side. There might be a slight delay in transmission. Okay, there we go. I've got Christy coming through. I've got a whole bunch of people coming through. Even got me coming through. That's fantastic. Okay, thanks very much. And then the next thing I'm going to ask you is if you can hear me, then please just type yes. And I know that you can hear me. And as Marlene says, if you could hear me, you wouldn't type on screen. She's got a good sense of humor. So while you guys are typing yes, so it's Dylan here. I'm leading this presentation, and next to me I've got Marlene. She's our IT specialist. And this afternoon's presentation is focusing on the general knowledge checklist. This is quite an important checklist of the remote pilot and the pilot getting involved with the ROC to have have knowledge of and to understand. This presentation is the initial presentation is a recorded presentation, so you'll hear that will be from Cornell. You'll hear her in the background, and she's going to talk us through a PowerPoint presentation. It's not very long, the presentation itself, so you'll have a chance to listen to it. It's approximately 10 minutes on our recording. Once that is complete, then I'm going to come back onto the presentation, and I'm got a few questions that have come up from the general questions again from the community over the past few days, which we had already put this recording together, and then these questions have come up. So I'm going to start them off, and I'll be doing the talking from my side, and Cornell is also attending, my colleague in George. She'll be typing and overriding me maybe if I'm misleading you guys, which I don't believe I will be. But if so, if she wants to add anything, she'll add some value to the presentation as well. So at this stage we've got 3 points of interest which we'll add, and then of course we'll open it up to the floor, and if you've got any queries from your side, then you'll be welcome to interact with us as well. So if there's nothing further, there's nothing further from my side at this stage. So sit back, enjoy the video. As I say, approximately 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Talking Radio team and I welcome you to the second webinar on our ROC development series. Today we are going to provide you with some interesting general information which you may not have known about before. So sit back and relax, and feel free to join in the discussion after this presentation. Are you in the process of purchasing a drone, or as commonly known in South Africa, an RPAS? First of all, if so, you need to make sure that you are procuring the RPAS from a reputable distributor who also have to supply you with an ICASA type approval certificate for the specific RPAS. This certificate is required in order to apply for your RPAS letter of approval, which forms part of the mandatory ROC 5-phase application process. Secondly, no RPAS shall be sold within the Republic of South Africa unless the seller has, by way of a packaging label, or, in the case of a resale thereof, by way of written notification, notified the buyer of the requirements as prescribed in document SA-CATS Part 101. If you have personally imported or been given the RPA as a gift and you do not have a type approval certification from ICASA, you would be obligated to apply directly with the ICASA for the type approval certification before having to apply for the RPAS letter of approval with the CAA. It is important to note that no RPAS shall be operated under more than one ROC at any time, and that all RPAs need to be registered under the particular ROC's name before it may be operated legally. In the absence of International Civil Aviation Organization, otherwise known as ICAO, standards and recommended practices for RPAS operations, each state has an obligation to regulate their own industry. This means that an RPAS operator who holds an RPL from any country outside of South Africa will have to comply with all of the CAA licensing requirements in order to receive a South African RPL license that will then allow them to legally fly their RPAS within the borders of South Africa. Please note that this last statement is dependent on whether you will be operating privately, commercially, corporate, or non-profit. You would need to be part of a South African ROC in order to operate commercially, corporate, or non-profit. Feel free to look at the ICAO link as referred to in this presentation to see if the country that you are intending to fly in is regulated. Sadly, South Africa still do not feature on this list. Therefore, we strongly suggest that you still contact the particular state before commencing to fly to ensure that you are abiding by their rules and regulations. ICAO, as indicated on their website, are currently working at establishing standard practices for the specific operation of RPAS in both segregated and non-segregated airspace. Be aware of the proper way to store, transport, and dispose of your RPAS LiION or LiPo batteries. Insurance companies will only insure RPA operators who have been trained in the safe transportation of batteries as part of the RPL syllabus and are in possession of their RPL. Also be aware that should you want to make use of air travel, most airlines now has very specific ruling on how many batteries are allowed to be transported and how they are packaged and how they are stored during the flight. Please check with your intended airline before attempting to transport any RPAS batteries with you or within your luggage. Did you know that you can do your RPAS pilot license while still in the process of completing your ROC application? The South African Civil Aviation Authority recommends that you do your RPL during phase 1 of the 5-phase process. However, as long as your RPL is completed by phase 4, which is the demonstration and inspection phase of the South African Civil Aviation Authority 5-phase process, you will still be compliant. We do recommend that you get it done at your earliest convenience, as it is one less thing to worry about during the ROC application process. As a qualified RPAS operator, with or without an ROC, you can supply RPAS work in the UK under the following conditions. Number 1. Each applicant is considered under its own merit, meaning based only on a person's qualities and not on what other people say about that person. Number 2. The UK CAA is, on occasion, able to grant temporary permission for commercial RPAS operations. Number 3. The above permission will depend on the level of competency that the RPAS pilot is able to demonstrate, as well as where the location of the filming is going to take place. But what about supplying RPAS work in Africa as a qualified RPAS operator with or without an ROC? The following refers. Number 1. Each applicant is considered under its own merit. Number 2. Generally, it appears that you may apply for an annual drone operator's permit at the respective CAA and will need to have proof that you are in possession of an RPL. For more information, please refer to the website reference underneath the picture on the left of this slide. Number 3. There is unfortunately no written proof to substantiate this information, so it is well worth your while to make contact with the respective authority for each African state well in advance of your intended operation to verify their respective requirements. What about a person with a foreign registered RPL wishing to supply RPAS work within South Africa? First of all, the applicant will need to convert their foreign RPL to a South African registered RPL. Secondly, they will also need to do either of the following: apply for their own ROC following the CAA 5-phase process, or register themselves under a CAA-approved umbrella ROC and operate that ROC's RPAS for work assignments, or register themselves and their own RPAS under a CAA-approved umbrella ROC and operate under a shared work agreement. As a final reminder to all RPAS pilots operating within South Africa, the South African Civil Aviation Authority, CARS Part 101.04.1 states the following under general requirements. No person shall operate an RPAS in terms of this part unless such a person is the holder of a. In the case of commercial, corporate and non-profit operations, a valid ROC including the operation specifications attached thereto, and b. In the case of commercial operations, an air service license issued in terms of the Air Service Licensing Act 1990, Act number 115 of 1990. In short, if you operate commercially, you would need an air service license. If you operate corporate or non-profit, you would not need an air service license. Thank you for your time, and we hope that this information has helped you understand a little bit more about RPAS operations in general. Details of our next webinar shall be emailed to you. Please feel free to ask questions after this presentation or send us an email and we will gladly assist. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Talking Radio team and I welcome you to the second webinar on our ROC development series.
So we back, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed that presentation. As I said, it was just a quick presentation by Konal, and she's covered quite a few subjects there within the or the continuation of this general knowledge checklist. And as I said earlier, these are points that have been brought up over the past few days, in fact. And we had already done the recording, so we decided to keep it as part of the Q&A session. So I'm going to open up with this information, and then of course you're welcome to come across with queries. So just please type in your questions as we go along. So the first one was, what about operating your drone that is registered in South Africa, that is registered obviously with the Civil Aviation Authority, and operating that in another country? Let's just say you're going to do some work in Botswana as an example. So we approached the CAA about this to confirm and find out what's the requirements. And the official requirement from the CAA is, firstly, you may not operate your drone that's registered in South Africa through the CAA in Botswana under that registration. In other words, if you're going to do work in another country outside of South Africa, you have to I'll give two options here. You have to deregister the zone, the RPAS that's registered with the CAA in South Africa, and then register with the Botswana Civil Aviation Authority. I'm using Botswana as an example, as an international, operator, and you'd have to register it with them, and then you could obviously follow in whatever process they have in place, operate the drone there. Coming back into South Africa, you then have to re-register that drone. under the Civil Aviation Authority. B to that would be if you were going to still be doing this work and you've got work in Botswana as an example again, then the drone that you've got registered here in South Africa, you'd have to keep that one as your South African drone, and you'd have to have another drone which you would then register for your international work. So the short story to that is you may not use the drone which is registered in South Africa under the CAA for international work without it first being deregistered. And that's also actually part of the law in conformance with Part 101. So that was an interesting one because that's been brought up by a few clients that have contacted us asking that very same question. The second one, which Cornel did lean towards when she was in her presentation, was the fact that you operate under another ROC while you are registering for your own ROC. So that is very possible. And what you would do in that instance is if you've registered to commence with your own ROC, and you want to continue with drone operations because that's your primary, source of income, of revenue, then you may operate under another ROC while applying for your ROC and following the 5-phase process. But in this instance, once again, with your coming back to the drone, the RPA, remote pilot aircraft, you would need two drones, because one would have to be registered with your application for your company ROC, and the other drone would be the one which you have registered with the company who's, let's call it, it's an umbrella ROC or managed ROC. Those are two terms that they use, where you would be using your drone under their license. Oh, sorry, your drone under their license in that instance while you are waiting for your ROC to become legal and to become registered with the CAA. So in that instance, it is a cost to the client because in this case, you've got to secure a second drone, unless, of course, you're working with a company who has their own drones and you are then flying as a qualified remote pilot under their license. But in that instance, you still have to be registered under their ROC. So you're forming part of their, let's call it their checklist. You're falling under their organogram. So that is important to know. And, just be aware that there are people out there that are trying to not follow this process. And it's really not worth it if you're trying to duck and dive. Because there are, there's huge fines and implications should you be found conducting a service through your drone or your drone operation while get registered as an ROC and have not made any alternate arrangements, as what I'm mentioning now, in order to operate that ROC. Okay, the next point of discussion from my side is still it's not exactly on ROC, but it's still to do with RPA, remote pilot aircraft. And the question here is, how do you go about converting from, if you've got a PPL, so private pilot license, and you want to do your remote pilot license? Is there a possibility? That's the A part of the question. And the B part was converting from your RPL, your remote pilot license, to your private pilot license. We, as Talking Radio, work closely with Cranefield Aviation. So we communicated this query forward to Rick at Cranefield, and he advised us that, going from the PPL, to the RPL. So from private pilot to remote pilot license, that is possible in terms of what they call, and don't get confused now, the term is RPL again, but this time it's not for remote pilot license, it's for recognition of prior learning. So, there's always these acronyms in this industry. So you would get RPL for your PPL to do your RPL. Does that make sense? Okay, so in that instance, that will work. And your course is shortened, so you don't have to do the full course that's structured in terms of the syllabus, both theory and practical. If you wish to find out more information about who to contact, if you might be interested in still doing your RPL, then you could just email myself and I'll put you straight on to Cranfield, or you can email them direct. Then they can give you the guidelines. Now, the other way around. So unfortunately, if you're converting from, or let's say if you wish to convert, once you've got your RPL, your remote pilot license, and you wish to convert from your RPL to your PPL, that is not allowed. So in other words, there is no RPL on your RPL to get your PPL, if that makes sense again. So you would need to start fresh from the beginning with your PPL, although as an RPL pilot, a lot of your subjects that you've covered within the RPL syllabus are included and are forming part of your PPL. So, you're not going to struggle too much. You've already had an introduction to it. Your focus on the PPL would then obviously be more on the practical side. In other words, the flying of the aircraft that you're going to be training on. So I hope that that clarifies the explanation on the RPL and the PPL. And as I say again, if you need to get more clarity in RPL, this can be supplied to you. That's including the medical that you need, and so what is the cost, etc., etc. All right, so now I'd like to just open up to the floor and see, are there any questions from those of you in the room that would maybe like to ask a question or two? Now's your chance. Nothing coming through yet. Cornel, is there anything from your side that you want to add? If you want to, just please type it up so that we can act on that. And otherwise, all right, there we go. Fine. Okay, so Cornel just posted something there on the chat box, and you can see that she says, it's obviously for interest's sake, there are fines for illegal use of a drones which equate to 50,000 Rand or 10 years in jail or both. Based on what she's passing to us and also what we were informed this morning, in fact, so this isn't a marketing talk, but we were informed that, there was one of our clients' contacts, in fact, that it has just come out of a court case where they've, this has been discussed now. They were using the drone and without the RSC. So, the short story on that is it's not just there to scare the people. It's actually been applied as well. And you really got to think seriously about it if you're going to get involved with operating drones in South Africa. If you look at that price, 50,000, you can basically get this whole process going for probably around about the same price. So it's worth considering that. Christy, good afternoon to you. And that's your question. In which instances would it be legal to operate a drone? Let's use an example. I have my RPL, but my drone is not registered. Neither is my RSC. Okay, I'll start answering you, and I know Cornel will jump in and write some stuff there for you, Christy. So with your RPL, you can operate your drone commercially without you yet having your RSC, because you are currently going through the application process, as I'm aware who you are and that you're working through us. You could continue to operate your drone commercially if you were under the umbrella of a registered RSC. So in that case, or that instance, that's the only way that you could continue legally as the commercial drone operator. Does that, Cornel, please just come through before we go to the next question? Are you happy with my answer to Christy? or do you want to add anything else to that? So, Christy, we'll just look in the chat box there and see what comes through from Cornel's side. Okay, there we go. Cornel's just answered as well. She says, you will then fall under the private use category, which means that you still have to comply with the Part 101 regulations. Yeah, so added on from what I've added and what Cornel's added, I hope that on. If not, please just give us another question based on that and we'll come back to you. All right, then we've got one from Michaela. She says, oh yes, and Cornel's also just saying, obviously for Christy, until such time as your RSC has been approved. Michaela says, for the re-registration and deregistration, does this apply to all drones or is there a weight restriction, and would this only apply to commercial users? Okay, so I can answer the second part while Cornel's typing away there, because she's going to help me for the first part of that question, Michaela. The second part is a firm. This would only comply with, or only be specific to the commercial users. So basically, I think what your question is saying is, if you're a hobbyist, you can go across and fly in Botswana. Obviously, pending what I keep saying Botswana. Let's make it international. So you could fly international. As long as there's no, following the requirements of that international state with regards to the flying as a hobbyist. So I think I'm on the right track with that. The first part of your question, the registration and deregistration, where you say, does this apply to all drones or is the weight restriction? Cornel, I need your assistance with that one with regards to the weight restriction. So I just want to see, Michaela, let's just wait for Cornel to come through on that. And then while we're waiting for that, Christy's just come back and said, oh wait, you guys are beating me to it. So Cornel, sorry, Christy, let's just go with Cornel's question for Michaela. On reply, she says the maximum weight category currently is 20 kilograms. So, Cornel, what you're saying is that, the weight restriction is up to 20 kilograms. There will be the registration and deregistration process that will apply for all commercial drone users. I do believe that is correct in my assumption of what she's saying. Back to Christy. She says, so is it legal to fly a drone for fun or for the purpose of expanding skill sets? So then you flying, Christy, you flying as a hobbyist. So, and you also got your RPL. So, I mean, you won up on the hobbyist. And yes, of course, you can fly the drone as a hobbyist, but there are a few restrictions with regards to that. I'm not looking at that list right now. So Cornel's going to be typing away again and just give us in terms of the hobbyist, Cornel, what are the limitations with regards to, for example, height. If I'm not mistaken, it's again not higher than 400 foot AGL. And then just give us if there's anything else that you want to add to that, so that Christy and while everybody else that's in the room can view that. And then while we're waiting, okay, Michaela's come back. She's happy with that answer. Pleasure, Michaela. And in terms of the hobbyists, there are a couple of rules which have to be complied with. Let's add one, for example, Christy, would be, not operating within 10 kilometers of an airfield when flying that RPAS. You could fly it if you get permission from the school. Sorry, not the school. I'm talking about where I stay. There's a flying school here that operates the airfield, but that would be getting permission from air traffic control. So they'd need to know why you're doing that. Right. So yeah, Cornel has come through. 400 foot AGL is what I said, and must operate. So this is a hobbyist now, Christy. Operate further than 50 meters away from public roads and crowds of people and buildings. So as she's saying, there's actually quite a number of regulations that are added to that. Just let us know in the chat box there, Chris, if you want us to send you the list of regulations, or not the list of regulations, because that's going to be some serious stuff. If you want us to send us a list of regulations pertinent to your question with regards to hobbyists, then you've got some reference on that, or we can also just send you the link, and then you can just follow the link to verify the procedures. Okay, is there anything else from the floor? Okay, so Christy has come through, and it's a pleasure. And Christy, yes, there's definitely a distinction between a hobbyist and an RPL holder. And thank you. We will send this stuff through to you. Crispin, afternoon, Crispin. Does one have to have a RSC to operate a registered drone for our building? Let me think about your question. To operate a registered drone for our building. Okay, I'm going to give you my answer, Crispin, and then let's see what Cornell says on her writing. But in the chat box, what I believe with regards to your question is, in order to have a drone for our building, the answer would be no, you do not have to have a RSC for our building, so long as you are not getting any financial gain from that our building venture that you are partaking in. So the RSC is specific again to commercial operations. And in your question, you just saying that you're doing our building and it's a registered drone as well. But you're not currently, if you are let's say you're the flying instructor in this question that you're posing, and the student is flying that drone which is registered to perform our building. So they performing it, then you would, then obviously you're going to get compensation for that. So there has to be an agreement in place. All right, here we go. So Cornell says you may keep record of your hours, and this may be taken into consideration when you do your RPL. The RSC is not affected, you've flown. So I think that also answers your question, Crispin. Just let us know if you're unsure or if you need anything else. And Christy, we've taken note of your query over there, so we'll send you the information that you need. And anyone else, if you need it, please feel free, let us know, and we can send that to you. All right, I'm just waiting to see if Cornell is going to come back with anything else that she wants to add to Crispin's query. And then obviously, if there's anybody else that wants to add something, please, you're welcome. Otherwise, it's a very interesting subject. If you consider these questions that are coming through, and I don't believe that we've answered or asked, should I say, all the questions that are out there with regards to remote operations. But for those especially that are working with Talking Radio, that are our clients, we will keep you up to speed with anything, any changes, any procedures that you need to be aware of, and as well if there's any updates or any new questions that come through with the answers. Okay, so Cornell just comes through and said any hobbyist can be a RPL holder as long as there is no commercial gain. All right, so Christy, I think that ties in with what I passed you earlier. So there's a clear distinction between an RPL hobbyist and a RPL with RSC. Yes, and of course the RPL holder would have more experience. In other words, at this stage in South Africa, a person that's flying as a hobbyist does not have to have an RPL. So I don't know if those procedures or if the law is going to change around that in the future, but that's how it is currently. Okay, Cornell, is there anything else that you want to add from your side on the chat box? It's not that I don't want you to hear Cornell's voice. We just it's easier for us in this session to work like this. we have tried it before. There we go, and Christy's back with us. So she disappeared. Okay, Christy, so now that you're back, Kunal has just also mentioned, she just wanted to let you know that, there is a distinction between a hobbyist and an RPR holder. So what you would need to do is, as the RPL, in other words, as a hobbyist, you do not have to be in possession of an RPL to fly your RPA. But if you are a ROC holder, you must have an RPL. So as long as you comply with those limitations, which Kunal gave earlier with regards to, I'll just read it for you again. So not below 400 foot AGL and fly further away from public roads and crowds of people and buildings. But as you've requested earlier, we'll send you that list. All right. Is anybody else that has any questions for us before we move on? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So remember, you will be getting a set of questions after this webinar, and it's going to be true and false, and you're going to have to answer and reply back to me. No, that's not needed. All right, so let's just move on to the next slide. It's the last slide. So for this one on the webinar that are already part of Talking Radio, so it's really great to have you here. We've just for this particular webinar, we've just got a special offer on our ROC facilitation. So the normal price for our ROC is 29650. That's including VAT. And those people that have missed this webinar this afternoon, I see there are a few of you that were registered, and you'll get a recorded version of this just now when we've completed. We're offering the special webinar promotion for those that have attended. So also for those that have registered is what I should have said. So for those that have registered /attended, that's a 35% discount on our normal price. So it comes to 18894.76, including VAT, and we do have a payment plan option available. So anybody that's interested, yes, please drop us a line, dylan@talkingradio.co.za, or you can just follow the prompt through and tell you to register. Sorry. Oh, there we go. So Molly said, and Stan, don't forget that that's a limited. We'll keep it open for a day or two to any feedback we get from you as well. Last thing from my side of the chat room is that is going to Fanny. So this flight, it's quite interesting. We're going to focus on the remote pilot license. And the idea behind this is to allow you to stand why you've got to compete. So for Christians and for Crispin, this is not specific. Remember, this would just be for those people on an RP work related commercial gain under sea, and that would flight plan, talk you through this flight plan, and we'll be using an ARC that's come through from the CAA as our reference, and I'll explain that briefly to you, but more importantly, I'll explain to you how to complete the flight plan, and that will take you, let's say, from A to Z of the flight plan itself, so that you understand as the RPL a little bit more about why you need to file this flight plan, and in fact, when you're filing the flight plan, what is this flight plan that you're filing. So that's scheduled for the 10th of July, that's in a week's time, and which will be at 4 p.m. local on the Monday afternoon again. So if you able to attend, we'd really like to see you there. And of course, at the end of that session, we'll again open the floor for Q&A for anybody that wishes to, query as we're completing the flight plan itself. It's a lot of information to take in, particularly if you've never completed a flight plan before, but we will give you the guidance that you need with it. It's actually not too complicated, especially for the type of work that you'll be undertaking within your ROC. So if there's no further questions from the chat room and from you guys attended, I just want to say thank you very much for your participation. And we'll just stay on the line for about a minute or two once we've closed off, and just allow anyone else who wants to ask a question before we're gone. Otherwise, thanks very much. It's myself, Dylan, and Marlene here from our Port Alfred venue this afternoon. Look forward to seeing you again Monday at 4 p.m. Thank you very much.